If it may say that was right.
Apologies for a slight delay.
Hi. Change it.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Development Control Committee meeting for June. I believe this is also going to be the last meeting in this council chamber. Am I correct? No?
No.
Last official one.
Audit on Wednesday.
Official one. Official one. Okay. Right, quick thing. In accordance with the openness of local bodies regulations 14, this meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed or communicated on other media platforms. The recording of this meeting will be made available on the council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance are reminded to make full use of and speak clearly into the microphones available at all times. A reminder that mobile phones should be turned off or put on silent mode. Those present at the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. A polite reminder that those members of the public in attendance must not act in a disorderly or disruptive manner or otherwise interfere with the proper conduct of this committee's business. Yep. Right, apologies for absence.
Apologies are going to receive by Councillor Frank Bardley, Councillor Donald Ford and Councillor Gary Hunt.
Yep. Appointments of substitutes.
None have been received.
The declarations of interest. No. Minutes of the previous meeting. May I sign? They'll be signed at a later date. Okay. Right, before we start, obviously we have a few new members in the room, and in order to give those members the opportunity to learn the way this committee works, we're not going to rush this, so please take your time. Any question is a good question, so please ask anything that comes into your mind. I know we've only got one thing on the agenda tonight, but let's make it a good meeting and ask questions on it. I know it's a council application, but that doesn't matter. It has to be seen on its own merits. Ask any questions that you need to ask, any clarification of anything that needs to be done, let's do it now. Okay? So, reports of the Planning Policy and Development Manager, application 2300135 FUL, 12 Davenport Avenue, Oadby, Leicestershire. Okay, report of the Planning Officer. Can you give your report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As you can see, the application is for 12 Davenport Avenue. You can see from the front of the site here, it is a 2-storey red brick terrace property. At the moment, the case for this application is for a proposed single-storey rear extension. Here's a location plan of the site. The dwelling itself is situated to the east of Davenport Avenue. Here's a zoomed-in image of the location. Here is a satellite view showing the surroundings of the site. Here is a zoomed-in image to show the surroundings. As you can see, which has already been acknowledged, that the case is a council-owned property. Usually it would be determined under delegated powers, but it's been brought to this meeting. As you can see, the rear extension itself is highlighted in yellow, and it is 19.8 meters from the rear boundary. I'll start off with the dimensions of the actual rear extension itself. The original proposal was for a 4.36 meter depth from the original rear wall. This has been amended to 3.5 meters from the original rear wall of the host dwelling. This, although it breaches the 45-degree rule, under these residential development supplementary planning document, this would comply with the guidelines. So although it breaches 45-degree rule, it is policy compliant. This is the highlighted extension for you to see. Existing and proposed elevations. Existing at the top, proposed at the bottom. Is the existing site itself. There is no existing extensions on this property. This is the proposed rear elevation of the single-story rear extension. It has a flat roof. The height of the rear extension is a maximum of 2.8 meters, which is also policy compliant. Here is the side elevations of the proposed rear extension. Here, this shows the front elevation with the two neighbouring properties to the side. This is some more Google images showing the bird's eye view of the actual rear of the application site. As you can see, it has a long, narrow garden. This is the view of the rear elevation on site. And this is the case again, as we bring it here. In summary, the application itself does not harm the character and appearance of the existing dwelling or the surroundings or the neighbouring properties. And I would recommend this case for an approval. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Joshi?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I'm very black and white when it comes to development, and I've learned that now over the few years. But my question is really, if it breaches the 45-degree rule, and then we're allowing it on another minority, majority, or whatever that's called, the SFD, how does that work? Because it's contradictory, isn't that? And secondly, where they're looking to build, does it fall onto just green land? Because that's what it looks like on the satellite view. Or is there somebody else's property at the back there with the garden? Because it just looks like open green space on there for some reason. I may be completely wrong.
Answer that question, please.
In terms of the application itself, they have a large patio to the front, as you can see. And I believe it would fill in this area in terms of the dimensions of the rear depth of the actual proposal. Hope that answers that question.
Chair, we've not got it on the screen. We've got a picture of your desk on the screen, not the application.
Okay.
If members wish the presentation, sorry, for you, Chair, if members wish the presentation to be put back on the screen, if you just ask the officer, they can share the screen again if you want to refer to a particular slide.
Just put that back on, please. We've got the view of the rear of the building where you've got it laid out as bird's eye view.
I'm exactly looking at where the site is. From what I can see, there's a concrete patio area at the rear of the building, and then the extension would come slightly into the garden as well.
It's actually on the last page that I'm looking, page 22. It's not very, the red line is right at the back, but then...
That's just the red line of the application site, of the whole application site.
Ah, right, okay.
If you look,
So it's only up to the trampoline?
if you look 2 pictures back, you can see where the actual...
Extension would be, so it comes slightly into the grassed area of the garden.
I misunderstand it. That's fine. Thank you.
Could we have a little bit more explanation, please, about the 45-degree rule? And Mr. Ball, would you care to comment on that?
Yes, certainly, Chair. It is noted in the report that there is breach the 45-degree rule. However, it's coming up to the maximum distance sitting on 3.5 itself. Now, in the context of the entire scheme, what may appear to be a contradiction within the report, unless I'm misunderstanding, the officer could probably clarify, it just sits at the very maximum distance within, probably unfortunate to use the word breaches in the first paragraph, which it is, beyond end all policy compliant, and in any case does not, in the officer's opinion, impact on character, street scene, incongruous to development, etc. Unless officers want to add anything more to that point, that's my advice to the committee. Does that satisfy members, Chair?
Councillor Joshua?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Not really, no, because if in previous applications and development applications, we've always talked about the 45-degree rule, and this just looks like we're kind of contradicting that rule. So if we've passed applications in the past or rejected applications in the past because they were contravening the 45-degree rule, and houses have been built without paying attention to that or due course, then it kind of goes against the whole policy, really. I know we've got a separate policy to contradict it, but I don't understand why why we're sort of, not basically standing by the 45-degree rule on this one, just because it's negligible.
Just to clarify.
Thank you, Chair. I think the situation is that the supplementary planning document will always take precedence over the 45-degree rule. So I think we need to look at it as almost as two layers. There's the 45-degree rule, but if the supplementary planning document is different, then that takes precedence over that.
So the policy overrules the rule. Yeah, I find it a bit strange as well. Councillor Morris?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application, if it wasn't a council-owned property, it would have just gone straight through, or would it have needed an application in the first place? Would it have not been permitted development?
Answer that question.
And then I've got a couple more.
The application, if it came forward, thank you, Chair. The application, if it did come forward as a non-council owned property, it would have breached the permitted development rights. It would have to become an application itself. Then it would be obviously assessed in the same way. Thank you.
Basically, if it had not been a council-owned property, it would have been a delegated decision and not come to this committee. For new members, because it's a council application, it has to be decided by this committee. It can't be delegated.
Thanks, Chair. If this is council-owned property, who's the applicant? Are we the applicant? And if so, are we the ones funding the thing? So there must be a need for an extension. Is that the case?
Yes.
So it's our property. We're the applicant. We're doing the extension. If it wasn't for just the 45-degree rule, which obviously I understand that and that, I don't really see any problem with it. I can't see. Not that we're going to. I imagine if we were to turn it down, would we be taking ourselves to court and appeal?
We could be, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ball? Mr. Ball?
You two be fighting it out.
I think for you, Chair, the point is perception. It's what the perception of the public would feel if the council do under delegated powers against the council. There's a perception that it's going to be a done deal and they could potentially put through anything that they wanted. In this case, it's all matters under delegation and under the constitution with some reservations to this committee, and that is one of those reservations, and that's why it's coming here.
Okay.
With that, Chair, I will move permit, but I'd probably prefer no second for the time being to allow others to perhaps extend this and get some more information on it.
Okay.
I'll move permit.
Councillor Gore?
Thank you, Chair. Sometime since I've done this, and this is a more fundamental question, what is the 45-degree rule in the first place, please?
Answer that question, please.
Thank you, Chair. The 45-degree rule is essentially measuring the effect on daylight and overshadowing of the actual extension itself. So you usually take the 45-degree midpoint of the neighbouring rear window, in this case, because it's impacting the rear elevation. And at the midpoint, you take a 45-degree angle, and if it does cut at the 45-degree angle, then you presume that the daylight and overshadowing of the actual extension will impact the amenities of the neighbouring property. In this case, that's how it's been used from the midpoint of, in this case, it was number 14, Davenport Avenue, the northern side boundary. But yeah, essentially that's what the 45-degree is. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Gore.
Thank you.
Councillor
Ridley?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask or just clarify one thing rather? The residential development SDD is 2019. That was passed by this council or adopted by this council through the democratic channels of this council. Can I just clarify that when that actually happened?
Adrian.
Chair, that's fine, I can confirm it did.
Is that okay, Councillor Ridley? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. My main question is already answered, but just on this specific application, it's being adapted to aid a resident with disabilities, if that's correct. Does that mean if we're funding it, then a block on right to buy would be put in place as it being adapted for disabilities?
I don't think that
Part of this.
so that planning application wouldn't really be relevant.
Mr. Ball, would you like to answer that?
If you want to talk about the delights of right to buys outside this meeting, I can give you an education, but not for this meeting. It's an irrelevant consideration.
Just there's certain things that are not
Really relevant to the actual planning application itself, and it's not really for us to talk about, but extremely good question. Thank you.
Councillor Bolton.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I've sat back as well as people have the first bite of this one. If I heard it right, originally they wanted 4.5 metres. That would breach our guidelines. So they reduced it to 3.5. So I assume they can still get what they wanted, 3.5, to aid this person in their application. They're not restricting it anyway, so that they can't do what they need to do in this area.
I should think it's restricting it in some way or other.
Yeah.
So I should think due diligence has been done on the plans to make sure that it's adequate provision for the residents.
It doesn't.
Is there anybody that would like to give a comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. In this application, as mentioned, it has been followed through by the agent that the space required is adequate for the actual applicant themselves. Also, on building regulations for a wheelchair user, the minimum space would be 900 millimetres. And in this one, the amended plan show 1.05 metres. So that would meet the requirements set by building regs. Also, the internal kitchen space could be modified if needed. That would not be, there would be no planning permission required for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor
Bolton, anything else?
It's just that this would have been specified by an OT initially, and they initially recommended 4.5, so they must have modified their recommendation to make it 3.5 to fit in with our policy. Pity we didn't tell them that in the first place, to save drawing up two lots of plans.
Okay, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Broadley.
Thank you, Chair. Being as everybody has said it, and I don't think there's a lot else to say, I'll second Councillor Morris's motion to approve.
Okay.
Any other
Questions? Any questions on procedure? Everybody's happy? Okay. So the application has been moved for permit by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Broadley. All those in favour of permit? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. That application is permitted. Before I close the meeting, I know there is one more committee meeting after this one, but please be aware that this building should be closing on Friday of next week. I believe the keys are being locked in the door and taken away. So if you want to have a look around this building, Councillor Bolter is going to take anybody around on Monday, 7 o'clock, I believe.
Correct.
Be a nice tour. We'll take you down into the dungeon, hopefully.
Lock the door.
Upstairs, and we could actually lock him down there as well. Okay.
Can I ask you?
The windows are going so it gets on.
Councillor Broadley.
Can I ask, are these boards going?
Right.
Sorry, can we have this conversation?
We'll have this conversation
Let's close the
after the meeting.
meeting.
I'll close the meeting.
Okay.